Hey guys, we have a special guest with us today. We have Joshua Habursky, and he is with the PCA. He is a political advisor, political lobbyist for the benefit of the cigar industry. And we welcome him to the show. How are you doing today, Joshua?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. We got a lot of activities going on here in Washington, steps away from the Capitol at our office, federally, but also in the states. There's no shortage of work of things that are issues popping up in the cigar industry, and also, small business as we fight for our retail membership day in and day out.
Going back over the last 3-4 years, it seems like as a consumer and a guy who does a podcast for cigars, it seems like the pressure has let off of us a little bit over the last, because 4 years ago, there was a lot of talks about stuff that was really going to impede our freedoms as cigar smokers. They did slip in the changing of the smoking age, which that was, complete bullshit. But anyway, they got that one in, but there's a lot of other stuff that were in talks that has not happened. And so is it kind of like a lot of stuff is going on politically right now, so that's like not their main focus, or do we just not know what's actually going on behind the scenes?
I know. I think over the last 3 or 4 years, the PCA, along with our industry partners, have really had to step up because there has been a influx of activities and challenges that have been thrown the industry's way. It's good that as consumer, that you feel as though that the burden has been let up, because that means that we're doing our jobs correctly.
Absolutely.
That, you shouldn't have to feel the pain point. You should be able to enjoy an adult product freely. And that's something that we've been working towards in the states and federally. One of the things that was a big issue last year that did pop up that we were able to stave off was a tobacco tax equity tax increase. Now, that tax increase at the federal level would have put a $3 tax on that cigar that you're smoking there.
Wow.
So $3 more, almost $100 a box. And, the PCA led the charge fighting this tax in both the House and the Senate. We were able to mobilize 30,000 plus consumers to get involved. And my team, we did 150 congressional meetings fighting that tax. And that was a real credible threat. It was included in the first rendition of the Build Back Better agenda, which was, President Biden's priority. So, on the surface, it might seem like we're in this period of calmness, and it should, because of the court victories and the lawsuits that PCA has been a part of. You're seeing an incredible amount of good quality, innovative new products come to market. And I think that's why, as consumers, this is the renaissance of cigars. We are in a cigar boom statistically. And I'm just very glad to be a part of an organization that is protecting the interests of consumers, retailers, and manufacturers, to see that cigar boom continue, where we can, you and I can enjoy good quality products coming from the DR, Nicaragua, and Honduras day in and day out.
Yeah. And so I do remember whenever they were getting ready to pass that last, printing press of money, that it was some crazy number of how much money they wanted to bring out of the tobacco industry. And so thank you guys for fighting that fight. Nobody wants to, we don't mind spending our hard-earned money on good cigars, but nobody wants to pay another $3 in tax on a cigar. You know what I mean? So thank you there. So let me ask you this, like, for the common guy, we don't know what it is that you do. So like, when they get ready to start doing something that's preposterous, what actions do you take?
Yeah, I think it boils down to research, communication, and mobilization. Those three things are key. As a hired lobbyist, and I've worked in lobbying for over a decade. I started with the Motorcyclists Association. Most recently came over from community banks 3 years ago. So now fully in the cigar industry. It's great because I get to align my passions and interests. I'm a cigar smoker since I was in college, and I was part of the Winston Churchill Society, where we talked about politics and smoked cigars every Friday. So I'm very fortunate to be in this industry. But as a lobbyist, I need to navigate the policy process. I need to look at risk. I need to assess the risk, inform our membership, inform our board of directors, inform our staff of where the tea leaves are as it relates to legislation and regulations, and then recommend an appropriate course of action of how we handle this. So a lot of what we do is fighting taxes, but also asserting the positive attributes of premium cigars, of the industry, that, as you and I know, cigar lounges and retail shops are hotbeds where people from all different walks of life can gather over the leaf and enjoy and have a conversation, sometimes a heated conversation about politics or religion or things that you might wouldn't otherwise talk about. These are the new political hubs for activity. And, so we want to protect and preserve those and differentiate ourselves from other tobacco products. Premium cigars are not cigarettes. They are not vaping products. The average person has their first cigar at the age of 30, average age of 30, and people have less than 2 a month. Yes,
what's the average age of someone who smokes cigarettes when they start? I'm going to guess it's like 15 or 16.
Significantly lower. And, with those different attributes, the usage patterns, the inhalation or lack of inhalation, kind of talking about the scientific research, that's what we convey to policymakers. So our team in a given day will, craft a letter or craft a message of support or opposition for a bill. I might go and present or testify or provide commentary on the hearing, but then we'll also go and get consumers and retailers to support our perspective and voice their concerns or their support for any given piece of legislation or regulation.
How often, like when you're fighting the good fight, do you whip out the actual statement from the FDA that says smoking 1 to 2 cigars a day has nil amount increase of the chance of getting cancer?
It's on our standard talking points in every meeting that I take with a member of Congress or their staff. They're getting that information. The fortunate thing about premium cigars, we don't have to cite industry data. The data that was collected by the Food and Drug Administration, National Institute of Health, and most recently the National Academies of Sciences, there are a lot of positive indicators about premium cigars. And, I mentioned before we went on, this week I was in Dover, Delaware, testifying on a tax reduction bill in the state that would lower the wholesale price from 30% to 15% for our fantastic Delaware retailers.
Wow. So you're actually fighting the tax that's already in place as well.
Absolutely. That's, we launched something earlier this year under the leadership of Scott Pierce, my boss, putting together what's called Vision 50, a proactive roadmap forward. One of the things that I noticed, and having worked in other associations, and Scott also having worked in other associations, we noticed that the cigar industry, by the nature of some of the issues that they faced, they had to be very reactionary. It was, what was the FDA going to do? What was Congress going to do? And then the industry would react. Well, we've kind of flipped that and said, it's a given. We are going to fight negative actions time and time again, but we want to have some positive actions, whether that be a tax reduction or inserting a bill that would allow the consumption of adult beverages or food at a cigar lounge. Things like that. We want to make sure that the retailers, the 3,000 plus that we represent, they can not only survive as businesses, but they can grow. They can see significant economic activity. And I know from my own personal experience, and I say on every interview, I'm a consumer first. I might be the association lead lobbyist and the industry's lead lobbyist on cigars, but I enjoy this. I smoke these when I'm traveling personally. The first thing that I do is looking for the local cigar lounge or the local cigar bar where I can go and spend my free time.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely. I was in Vegas back in January, first trip. But anyway, I was very, very disappointed. I stayed at the Link. I don't know if you know where that is, but it's right next to the promenade. And you could smoke cigarettes, but you couldn't smoke cigars down anywhere in the lobby or the casino. And I asked the guy, I was like, so what's up with that? Why can't I smoke my cigar, but they're smoking cigarettes? And he was like, oh, because they smell so bad. And I said, well, you had people smoking cheap cigars in here. If you're smoking great cigars, they're going to smell way better than these cigarettes. And anyway, it just blew my mind. But then we went next door to the Mirage and you could smoke cigars everywhere. And I was like, I should have double checked that before I booked my hotel.
You're right. And that's what we've seen in the gaming sector. A lot, especially over COVID. The pandemic, basically, we had certain states that shut down all indoor smoking, and we had to fight against that. Michigan being one of them, some counties. And that's why the public policy arena is so tough. We have a staff of 3.5 on our government affairs team. Glenn Loop, who runs our state affairs, myself, who manages the whole team, and then Ryan Parada, who's our researcher, government affairs manager, who works on federal and state. And then we have one consultant who helps it out to cover 50 states, all the localities, federal, and then also, international. Is a lot to handle. And you correctly pointed out, in adjacent industries like gaming, they are starting to restrict the ability of people to enjoy cigars in areas that were kind of the last bastions of indoor smoking. Like when you go to a casino, you want to have a cocktail, you want to smoke a cigar, and you want to have fun a little bit. And, luckily, certain casinos in Vegas, I don't think that that's going away for the long run. For our trade show at the Sands Expo, it will be smoking. But I do know the Link is, I believe, the second casino. It started out with the Park MGM, which went to completely non-smoking. And it's like a couple of the casinos in New Jersey and Pennsylvania have tried with it. But at the end of the day, if they look at the numbers, if you prohibit cigar smoking, but smoking in general too, the revenue for gaming will go down.
Yeah. And, I don't have a problem as much with a casino that wants to have a smoke-free environment. They have a definite consumer base that would enjoy that. But at the same time, when you have a casino that says, okay, well, you can smoke cigarettes, but you can't smoke cigars, that's offensive to me, and I don't appreciate it. But I really like the idea of maybe like, this section over here is all smoking and this section over here is non-smoking. I'm more down for that because, when I go to the casino, I see a lot of people going outside to smoke.
Yeah, no, and it's an interesting development. I mean, we're monitoring a lot of those state legislative proposals. But it brings up another good point. We've had to adapt our government affairs priorities and policy initiatives to understand that sometimes the issues that we face are not even have anything to do with government. Like the private business is making these decisions, and how do you communicate with that? We've seen a lot with payment processing, with communications, social media, things where corporations or private businesses are restricting a person's ability to enjoy a premium cigar, legal adults. And, we've had to kind of have this external affairs component where we're going out there and telling the positive story of premium cigars, countering misconceptions. At that hearing in Delaware that I referenced, you had the American Lung Association, American Heart Association, and Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids all presenting their talking points. And I told the committee, if you listen carefully, you just got a boilerplate template of anti-smoking, anti-tobacco rhetoric. Nothing in their studies and their references were specific to premium cigars, even though the bill itself has a specific definition for premium cigars and was only about premium cigars.
Oh, wow.
They're throwing things out about vaping and kids, vaping and using e-cigarettes or smoking cigarettes. And it's like, this is completely different. Like, keep that at the door. If you want to use data, make sure it's specific to premium cigars. And if they are going to do it, we're going to beat them every time.
Very nice. Well, let me ask you this. Like, I'm sure you work with or you talk to congressmen, women, and senators. Who are the Congress people or senators that are easy to work with?
Yeah, we have certain members that definitely are interested. There's about 50 House members that are cigar smokers. Recently, this year, the Congressional Cigar Caucus was formed, and members basically sign on to this caucus to coalesce around ideas about premium cigars. The leaders of that caucus are Dan Muser out of Pennsylvania, Representative Muser, and Representative Tom Emmer out of Minnesota.
Which Pennsylvania is a perfect example of no taxation. I mean, I didn't even know that till last year. I was like, they have zero tax on tobacco.
Yeah, well, for cigars, the OTP tax is, Pennsylvania, Florida, New Hampshire, and cigars over $2 in Washington, D.C. Those are the four entities without an OTP. You definitely have a lot of the Florida delegations and Pennsylvania delegations leading. Senator Menendez out of New Jersey is an avid cigar smoker, someone who's in Democratic leadership. Premium cigars don't have a party slant. We have stalwart Republicans and stalwart Democrats that are supporters of our issues, and we have opponents on both sides of the aisle. And it's weird because that can be a misconception. Oh, they're fighting this. Administratively, the last administration, we were able to have conversations with the White House. We were able to, meet with folks on regularly that handle our issues. That has continued in this administration as well. There hasn't been a big transition at the FDA. There has been a lot of new personnel. We have a new commissioner for the FDA. We have a new CTP director, which is the Center for Tobacco Products, which is our principal regulator. And we've had to build new relationships there. But we're going to get dealt a deck no matter what of elected officials and regulators to deal with. And you have to apply different strategies. You have to apply different communications methods and messaging. The messaging that we were using about small businesses in the last administration may not be as impactful as, talking about the employment and stabilization in Honduras and the Dominican Republic and Nicaragua, which is a key talking point in this administration. So we have to be able to call an audible and adapt accordingly to whoever we're communicating.
That makes sense. Well, let me ask you this. Have you dealt directly with Senator Ted Cruz or John Cornyn?
Yeah, the Texas delegation, they're active. I think that in the future, what we're hoping that they can be even more active on our issues. There are, Texas is the new, I look at states that are growing in the premium cigar sector. Texas and Georgia are really up there in terms of their big cities and developing a cigar culture. Omaha, Nebraska, another kind of interesting city that is having this cottage industry for cigar culture. So we're hoping that, in the Dallas area, and even the Houston area, there's a number of new shops or new businesses that are cigar friendly that are forming. And I think that we want to make sure that those two senators realize that impact, the economic impact in their state, and how many people enjoy that in their state. But they've been supportive of past legislation that would have exempted premium cigars. But we have not seen them go to the next level and have, given speeches or, frequently met with the industry like a Senator Rubio has in Florida, or, a Senator Menendez has in New Jersey.
Yeah, I know Rubio has been a rock star for the cigar industry, and I'm in Texas, so that's why I was asking about my two particular senators. And I've sent both of
Troy
them.
Nels, Representative Troy Nels in Texas. He is a champion. He's a cigar smoker, former sheriff in the Houston area. He's a member of the Cigar Caucus. And I would say in Texas, he's one of the biggest champions that you have.
I am sorry, you broke up just a little bit. What did you say his name is?
Troy Nels. Troy
Nels. All right. I'm going to reach out to him. And so, what's on the table right now? What is one of the particular things you guys are going to battle for us right now?
So a couple different things, federally, we're really working on making sure that crazy tax doesn't pop up. That's something that we have to communicate. In November, there's a new election cycle. And, the cycle has already begun. November, there's another election. We're trying to find and curate cigar-friendly candidates, have conversations with folks, in the beginning. Again, we don't want to be a reactionary organization. We want to, be as proactive as we can. So that outreach is taking place. Another issue that's on the FDA's radar is the administration has announced their intention to ban flavored cigars along with menthol cigarettes. Those are two active rules that they're considering. And, PCA, we are primarily focused on premium cigars. And by the FDA definition, by the court's definition, and by our definition, they are hand rolled, so no machines, no flavors. However, we know that a lot of our membership sells flavored products. And, whether it's a bourbon infused cigar or, different products, pipe tobacco. We also represent pipe tobacco, which is inherently flavored. So we, met with the White House, OMB, and OIRA, which is the Office of Budget and Management that is evaluating the rule, and raised our concerns with a prohibition on flavored products. We said that as it relates to our businesses, they are not selling to youth. You just passed Tobacco 21. Why not enforce the rules that are existing rather than create new arbitrary rules based on shoddy science? In that meeting, it was a contentious meeting. I said at least 6 times that the FDA has failed to do this. If you are going to make a far-reaching regulation that will affect thousands of businesses and result in the loss of millions of dollars, you need to do your homework. Their regulation, when they released it, said it would have no international impact. Well, that's patently false. These cigars, even your flavored cigars that are machine made, many of those are made outside in the Dominican Republic and in other countries. So you have to look at the international impact. They also argued, and the impetus or the driving force behind this regulation is that it disparately affects minority communities. And we said to them, where's the data? We haven't seen any research that would support that conclusion. But also, if we say that this conclusion is true, wouldn't that mean that minority-owned businesses would be affected as well. And we said, you haven't done the research on that. You have to look at the economic impact in addition to the health impact, and you failed to do both of those. There is not compelling evidence to suggest a prohibition of these products, should exist. And we know that many PCA members, of the 3,000 plus that we represent, the sales of flavored products represent, 10, 15%. So a sizable minority of products. My goal is to create an off-ramp from erroneous regulation for the vast majority of our members and the products that they sell. So it was important that we voice our concerns on this issue. And I think right now, that's the most impactful one at the federal level that we're undergoing. We are also in the midst of the third lawsuit against the Food and Drug Administration, challenging the overall deeming rule, and that there will be arguments in May in that case in particular. So we're definitely walking and chewing gum at the same time, active in the courts, the legislature, the regulatory environment at all levels of government.
Yeah. And so first, I appreciate all of that. And I wanted to bring up another thing that I have been like really against, and I've had some backlash whenever I talk about it, saying this is America, we can do whatever we want. But how do you feel about cigar companies? And I'm going to share the screen right quick, that make cigars that look like that.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because we released a statement that was pretty controversial a couple months ago about responsible marketing and about that we don't market to youth. We know usage. Youth are not smoking premium cigars. I referenced that statistic of the average age of 30 being the first time people smoke a premium cigar. The regulators are concerned with the appearance of marketing to youth. That is, the FDA has a zero tolerance policy when it comes to marketing to youth. Glenn and I just did a follow-up op-ed about the packaging and design and the appearance of marketing to youth. And PCA, we're in the midst of evaluating a new policy position on responsible marketing that we'll be fleshing out as we get closer and closer to our trade show in July, and really emphasizing that we as an industry have a responsibility. When I talk about premium cigars to elected officials and regulators, I'm talking about the artisanal nature, the historic nature of boxes. I'm not talking about the latest rift of pop culture. We're not saying that we can't be creative and innovative. You can be creative and innovative without operating in that gray area, and in some of the instances in that area that is irresponsible, that puts the rest of the industry at risk. So,
and that's it's a delicate position, because on one hand, yeah, you're running a business, you want to sell the maximum amount that you can. And if that wrapper gets people's attention, then you're being successful. But on the flip side, if you care about the cigar industry as a consumer, you understand that the FDA or the Congress people or Senate, there's opposers that are going to see that and say, yeah, you're clearly marketing to kids. And as you say, the youth aren't buying cigars. I doubt any minor has bought that cigar that says candy bar right across the side.
Yep.
But it's not the fact that they're buying them. It's the fact that you're giving ammunition to the opposition of cigars. And so it's a very delicate wire, because on one hand, I get it. We're free to do whatever you want to do marketing wise, but also you got to look at the longevity of the cigar industry. And are you giving the opposition ammo to fight with us?
Absolutely. It is a delicate balance. The National Academies of Sciences that report on premium cigars, the usage patterns and health effects, they basically said there's no self-regulation in the tobacco industry, in the cigar industry. And, we took that to heart. We have always been, in the 3 years that I've been here talking about it. Well, and really even before that, Scott Pierce has been talking about self-regulation. And I think finally people are starting to understand that we have to have some guardrails in place. Fortunately, I'm on a cigar podcast right now where that screen pops up and I see those products. The last thing that I want to have is the FDA, the anti-groups putting up that same screen, and I have to defend those actions. I mean, the appearance is in poor taste. Sure. That I think a lot of folks can agree on. Now, we have to take certain steps. We don't want to go too far in one direction. I mean, we are not in the business of saying, you can't sell this and prohibiting and coming with an iron fist.
Right, because always the biggest concern is, well, who's going to make the decision on whether this is appropriate or not? Because then you start getting into censorship and, as much as I support the cigar industry, I also support the First Amendment.
Yep, free speech is critical. I mean,
right. And so it's a very delicate balancing act. And it's like, well, we're not saying that you can't do that. We're just saying, let's use a little common sense and not do that. But at the same time, I'm not the guy putting my stamp on every name brand, every line of cigar that comes out. So, it's just so delicate because of well, who's going to make that decision and when do they make the call on what I can do?
And we've studied other industries like the alcohol industry, what they've done on self-regulation that has informed decision making and kind of our path forward for what we plan on revealing. And I can say this, that the PCA as an organization and with the trade show, we are the ultimate marketplace that brings manufacturers and retailers together. And in doing so, the power that we have over this is that we are not going to afford companies that do actions and create those types of products that are questionable. They are not going to get to use the channels of promotion that the PCA affords, whether it be the trade show or other communications entities that we have. That is a decision that we can control as an association. And, we want to promote the innovative, creative new products that are coming to market, whether you're a small company or a company that has been in this business for 100 years. We believe in that equal opportunity to market, but, we want to make sure that this industry is around for another hundreds of years and that people can enjoy cigars just like you and I can with the freedom of that opportunity.
And I see it as a money grab. When I come up with a product that looks like a candy bar or has the name of the Cookie Monster or whatnot, I see that as an opportunity for somebody who's just trying to make a money grab off of slick marketing. These are not the brands that we know and love that have been around. These are guys that are trying to make a quick buck. And so, it's just a really difficult jurisdiction area to say who has control. So I'm not for it, but I saw that same picture I just showed on the screen earlier on Twitter. And I said, because they were saying, hey, this is a really good cigar. And I was like, the marketing is horrible. It's towards something that could be used against us. And I had like 5 people really come hard against me saying, First Amendment. And I'm like, yeah, I support the First Amendment, but I also support the cigar industry. And that tells me that let's use some common sense.
Well, and if it's a good cigar, let the cigar speak for itself. The brand and people want to build a brand, but do you really want to build a brand off of, kind of adopting or stealing branding from other companies?
It's gimmick. I mean, just straight up, it's a gimmick.
Yeah. So, I think that there's, to put a finer point on this, there's a lot more that's being done, that's being worked out behind the scenes on this issue. We wanted to take a leadership role as an association to call attention to it. In the initial letter, we got a lot of people talking about this. When Greg Zimmerman, our president, Scott Pierce, we sent that initial blast out. Like I said, most recently, Glenn and I, put a little bit of a finer point on that. And it was really, we want people to be able to have that creativity and freedom, but not snub their nose at regulators and the FDA and elected officials. Like, it puts us in a weaker position and we're going to continue to advocate for the industry. And we've seen, and in that op-ed that I referenced, we basically said, as the leaders in the industry, in the government affairs perspective, we are telling people to cease doing this, that this is problematic, that it's getting attention, and
Good attention.
It's not worth making the quick buck. It is not worth it, because in the long run, I don't care what cigar company you are, if that continues to proliferate, everyone will lose.
And I agree with that. And one of the problems that I brought up was, there's always going to be these guys that jump into the cigar business just to make a quick buck and then get out. And so, I can see them using that type of a tactic or marketing scheme, but for the longevity of the entire cigar industry, I just don't think it's a road we want to go down.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I know that Glenn and I would be happy to come on a future show once that marketing policy or code is released. That is something in the works, and we're very upfront with that we have to take this seriously, but we're also taking our time with it. We know that the stakes are high with this, and we want industry leadership, whether it's manufacturer, retailer, even some consumers, to vet this policy, because this is really the first major step towards self-regulation that anyone in the industry is taking, any association, any entity. And we have to be careful, because the stakes are so high, and we don't want to get it wrong.
Have we ever seen this type of marketing in the past? Is this something that's just within the last couple of years?
Yeah, historically, you always have a couple outliers that are out there. 99+% of the SKUs that are released are perfectly fine, and that's why in the debate I've seen folks say, "Oh, this is a rampant issue." There's some high profile issues out there, but if you look through your humidor and I look through my humidor, what are we going to say, that most of them are questionable? I don't believe so. I think that anything that I have in my humidor now, and I've had to become very self-conscious about this issue in particular when purchasing cigars for myself, not to violate anything that we're talking about as a code of marketing. But the vast majority, and you could go across the board with consumers in their humidors, very few of the actual products and the products on the shelves are questionable. And even the companies, it's important to note that, yes, they may have done something that was questionable 10 years ago. Well, we're in a different period of time. We have to be adaptive and receptive to what the current thinking is. And so that's why we made it a point in our initial statement. We're not looking at the past. We're saying, in the future, this is what needs to be done, and you need to be cognizant of responsible marketing practices.
Yeah, and because it would be very easy to go down a road that we don't want to go on, policing our industry, because you could look at several other cigar brands that I look at and say, oh, well, they're fine, but at what point do someone comes along and says, Well, yeah, that doesn't reference a candy bar, or that doesn't reference a childhood television show, but the artwork is very cool. And so that makes it attractive to youth. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to get that far into it.
Yeah, it's you look at the anti-groups, they want plain packaging, which we've
They
seen
do that in Canada now,
internationally.
don't they?
Yeah, yeah, they want, in addition to that, or graphic warning labels. That's why, like, it's important to note that the PCA led the lawsuit against the warning labels.
And
We're
good
not
job on that, by the way. Yeah, because I've seen a box from Korea actually, and the entire box was covered in a photo of a child in ICU with all these tubes coming out of them. And it was like,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa. What does that have to do with the cigar industry?
Exactly. And it's one of those things. We're not a censorship organization, and we have a record that is of asserting the First Amendment. So, you're right. There is a balance, I think, in the United States. And I was just in London meeting with ambassadors from Nicaragua, Honduras, and the Dominican Republic, along with representatives of the United Kingdom cigar market. We were talking about Europe, and the anti-groups through the auspices of the World Health Organization and Bloomberg Philanthropies, they have been communicating internationally, and they find a country like in Australia or New Zealand, and they try some drastic anti-tobacco measure. And we have to be careful because that catches on like wildfire. And we've even had some of these crazy proposals pop up in counties or cities, like in Massachusetts and other states. So we're sharing information. We're trying to stave off some of these problems. But I would say, if you look globally, not only is the United States the largest premium cigar market, having imported 500 million plus cigars last year, but we're also the most favorable, or in that top 5% of the most favorable when it comes to restrictions and government relations, because we have entities like the PCA fighting back against a lot of activities that in Europe, in certain countries, they just, government's doing this.
Right.
And that's the beauty of our system. People can weigh in, they can voice their concerns. I'm hoping that we can get a consumer army of folks, whether it's with PCA or the CRA, and get more people involved. And that's why I don't take it personally when, a lot of the, there's commentary and there's criticisms of government, there's criticisms of our strategy. We're putting the best foot forward, and I'm happy to defend our positions or explain or have conversations about our positions. I always joke, it's like, pick up the phone. My number is all over our website, my email address. We don't want the keyboard warriors, though. It's real easy to post on Facebook a gripe or grievance against the PCA, but it's better to get the facts and information first and have a conversation. And I think people that initially had criticisms 2 or 3 years ago when we were starting kind of this new agenda, now are some of our biggest supporters.
And I'm going to change gears here. Are you familiar with the Sisters of the Leaf Grease Global?
Yep.
And Anastasia is heading that up. And that's another great organization that shows that the cigar industry is worldwide, not
Absolutely.
just here in America. And I talk to a lot of these people in other organizations, and they talk about the restrictions they face in their own country. And it makes me appreciate that I live here. But like you were saying, on like a city level, here in Abilene, where I live, you can't smoke in any business in the entire town except for the cigar shop, which we are appreciative that we can smoke at the cigar shop, but the restriction on the local businesses and prohibiting them from having patrons that enjoy cigars is really, a disservice to the businessmen and women of this city.
Absolutely. You're right. And I think that's why we've focused a lot on that global impact. That's another new frontier for the association, and having those conversations. And, it was great to have that conversation in London with, high caliber senior government officials. But, we really launched this initiative with our International Policy Summit, which we conducted virtually last October. We had people from Africa, from South America, from Europe, all different countries. And, people are talking about best practices. That information sharing is invaluable. And, we're going to have more of that at the Super Bowl of Cigars at the PCA trade show in July. More of those conversations. And I look, forward to, having those conversations with brothers and sisters of the leaf, in our formal sessions that are dedicated to that, but also informally in one-off conversations. And, that will continue. That dialogue sharing is important.
That's what we like to hear. So let me ask, I got one last question for you. Has the PCA considered doing the PCA Vegas show or event in a different month? Because you know how hot it is in July.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, I don't do a ton on the trade show side. I know that our Lisa and Scott and the team there, they do fantastic work with our committee, and all of the options have been considered. Several membership surveys have been sent out. The future of the show, again, we're adapting accordingly, not only in government affairs, but all facets of the industry. So, I think in the future, different things are considered. I know that our membership really loves Las Vegas. By and large, that all the survey results have said that Vegas is a very expensive city to hold an event.
Y'all should do that in Dallas, okay? I'm just going to pitch it for Texas right now. Y'all should do that in Dallas.
It's fantastic. So, in addition to the big Super Bowl, we've been doing a lot of smaller events. We did one here in Washington D.C. for 150 consumers. That has only grown. We've been doing it now for 2 or 3 years. As a fundraiser. We've also been trying to get out in the field, so to speak, to meet with our members directly and have those personal conversations. Every year that I've been here with the organization, we've done 75 to 100 retail visits as a government affairs team. Even in the midst of the toughest time for the association during the heart of the pandemic, during some of the furloughs, Scott, Pierce, and I were on the road listening to members, trying to, really keep the ship rolling, to keep the train on the tracks, so to speak, and those personal interactions and going to different cities, because the cigar culture in Dallas is unique. It's different than what you would see in Savannah or Atlanta or even my hometown of Erie, Pennsylvania. So, we want to be cognizant of that. We want to grow. This is, again, it's not so much about let's save the industry. It's how does the industry responsibly grow? How does that marketplace get better? How does it innovate, but never lose sight of our historic our past.
I got you. Well, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on Cigar Talk, Joshua, and I would love to have you back in the future, kind of just to keep us updated on what's going on. Like I said in the beginning, it feels like we're in a good place right now compared to where we were 4 years ago, but at the same time, I know you guys are working hard to keep it that way. And so thank you for what you and Glenn and your whole team does. And I really hope that you'll come back and update us every so often.
I would be happy to. I mean, I really enjoyed the conversation. You brought up some great points and things that, we have to consider. I am, a big proponent of the cigar media and appreciate you providing different avenues for us to get our message across to the consumers, retailers, and manufacturers in this beautiful industry. And, I look forward to, hopefully in July, you'll be with us in Vegas and we'll get to smoke a cigar together.
Well, unfortunately, this year I'm not going to be able to make it to the PCA. So, but next year I've already got it on my calendar.
That sounds great. Well, if you're ever in Washington, D.C., stop by for a cigar and we'll enjoy one here.
Hey, sounds good, Joshua. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a great weekend and we'll be talking to you soon. Tell Glenn I said hello.
Will do. Have a great one. Thank you,
sir.